So we asked you to tell us what you wanted to know about 6R4s, and one thing that came up a number of times was maintenance and running costs. So we're going to take a look at those today. So we spoke to a few experts and we've put together a quick overview on what it takes to run a car. Obviously, mileages that we're going to give you are very much subject to the driver and their style, the amount of power from the engine, the rev limit, and also whether it's being used for rallying, rallycross, or what it's being used for. So we're going to have a look at three main areas: engine, diffs, and the gearbox, and give you an idea of what it costs to keep these maintained, keep the car running. Obviously that's not going to be all of the costs involved, but it'll give you a good idea. So first we'll look at diffs. You've got a front diff, a rear diff, and the centre, which is known as a viscous coupling. Service interval for diffs is between 300 and 500 miles. To remove these, service them, and then refit them on the car, you're looking at around £2,000, and that doesn't include any parts that you need once you get those diffs apart and see if there's any damage been done. Now you might think that's a lot of money, and maybe you wouldn't go servicing them quite that often, but if you break a front or rear diff, you're looking at between £8,000 and £10,000 for a replacement if you can find one, and the centre diff between £2,000 and £3,000. So it does make sense to keep on top of your maintenance. Moving on to the gearbox, again 1,000, 1,200, maybe at a push 1,500 miles on the service interval on the gearbox. And to remove that, strip it, service, and then refit it to the car, again you're looking at around £2,000, and that does not include any parts that you find damaged once you get in there. Again, a good reason to make sure you stay on top of the maintenance of your gearbox is if you need a replacement and you can find one, you're looking at £20,000. And finally, and probably most frighteningly, let's have a look at the engine. The Austin Rover V64V, the original engine that was designed and built for the 6R4. Again, 1,000 to 1,500 miles is the service interval on that, and a full engine stripped down and rebuild can be a frightening £20,000. Again, you might be tempted not to do any servicing on that, not to keep your maintenance up, but if you can find one of those when you need a replacement, you're now looking at £50,000. So for a cost per mile calculation, if we use a 1,000 mile service interval for the gearbox and the engine and 500 miles for the diffs, to get to 1,000 miles you've got to service the diffs twice, that's £2,000 a service, 4,000. Gearbox once, another 2,000, so we're at 6. Worst case on the engine can be around 20, so £26,000 for 1,000 miles, that's £26 a mile. Before you've put any fuel in it, the car does 5 miles to the gallon, which is a litre a mile, so you're adding another £1.50, £1.60, and then obviously you've got all your fluids, your tyres, your brakes, and everything else. It's quite a cost per mile. So some of these costs probably go a long way to explaining why there aren't many 6R4s out on the stages now. If you're going to have a busy season with a 6R4, by the time you get to the end of the year, you could find yourself spending £30,000 on servicing and maintenance. But if you had a year that did a lot of damage and you needed to replace the engine, the gearbox and the diffs, you could be looking at £90,000. In recent years, engine swaps seem to have been quite popular with 6R4s, usually either the Ford or Jaguar 3 litre V6 or a Nissan 3 litre V6. And we've said many times before that our car is running a Jaguar engine. So why do people do this? Well, the Jaguar engine is not going to be anywhere near the £50,000 that you need to buy an Austin Rover V64V. Ours has had quite a bit of work done to it, but even including that, at worst case scenario, you're at no more than 20% of the cost. And the service interval, well, we've run this engine for 3,000 miles between full strip and rebuild, and that cost was around £3,000. So suddenly that's about £1 per mile as against the £20 a mile for running the original engine. Now you can see clearly why anyone that wants to run one of these cars a lot is going down that route. And there are a few out on the stages still with the Nissan or with the Jaguar engines in. Yes, those engine swaps do mean they aren't fully original cars, but if that's what it takes to keep 6R4s out on the stages and keep them in people's minds, then it's got to be done. They do sound close, but they don't sound 100% the same. But if there is no one out there running with the original engine, then these cars that sound close are certainly better than not seeing them out there at all. Make sure you give us a like, press subscribe, and then you'll see all the other videos we've got on the channel, and there's plenty more to come. Questions about the car, anything you want, just put them in the comments below. We'll see you on the next one.